The Master and His Pupil. There was once a very learned man in the North Country who knew all the languages under the sun, and who was acquainted with all the mysteries of creation. He had one big book bound in black leather and clasped with iron, and chained to a table which was made fast to the floor. When he read out of this book, he unlocked it with an iron key, and none but he read from it, for it contained all the secrets of the spirit world. He told how many angels there were in heaven, and how they marched in their tanks, and sang in their choirs, and what their names and jobs were. And it told of the demons, how many there were, and what their names and powers were, how they might be summoned and made to do people's bidding. Now, the master had a pupil who was but a foolish lad. He acted as a servant, and was never allowed to look into the black book, or hardly to enter the private room. One day the master was out, and the lad, as curious as could be, hurried to the magical chamber. He gazed at his master's wondrous apparatus for changing copper into gold and lead into silver, and the mirror in which his master could see all that was passing in the world, and the shell which whispered to his master what people were saying at that very moment. But the lad realized he could do nothing with these things. "I don't know the right words to utter," he sighed. "They are locked up in the big black book." He looked round and saw that the book was unfastened. The master had forgotten to lock it before he went out. The boy rushed to it and opened the volume. It was written with red and black ink, and much of it he could not understand, but he put his finger on a line and spelled it through. At once the moon darkened, and the house trembled. A clap of thunder rolled through the passage and the old room, and there stood before him a horrible, horrible form, breathing fire, and with eyes like burning lamps. It was the demon Beelzebub, whom he had called up to serve him. "Set me a task," bellowed Beelzebub, with a voice like the roaring of an iron furnace. The boy only trembled, and his hair stood up. "Set me a task, or I shall strangle thee." But the lad could not speak. Then the evil spirit stepped towards him, and putting forth his hands, touched his throat. The fingers burned his flesh. "Set me a task!" "Water that flower over there," cried the boy in despair, pointing to a geranium which stood in a pot on the floor. Instantly the spirit left the room, but in another instant he returned with a barrel on his back, and poured its contents over the floor, and again he went and came, and poured more and more water, till it was deep on the floor of the room. "Enough, enough!" gasped the lad, but the demon heeded him not. He didn't know the words by which to send him away, and still he fetched water. It rose to the boy's knees, and still more water poured. It mounted to his waist, and Beelzebub still kept on bringing barrels full. It rose to his armpits, and he scrambled to the tabletop. And now the water in the room stood up to the window and washed against the glass, and swirled around his feet on the table. It still rose. It reached his breast. In vain he cried. The evil spirit would not be dismissed, and to this day he would have been pouring water and would have drowned all the world. But the master remembered on his journey that he had not locked his book, and therefore returned. At the moment when the water was bubbling about the pupil's chin, he rushed into the room and spoke the words which cast Beelzebub back into his fiery home. The end.